We are the Rejects.
Good afternoon, Rejects. We are back after a 1 week hiatus. And as you can see, we have not one, not two, not three, but four faces on your screen today. I'll get to my man just below me in just a second. As always, I'm Chris, joined by the man with the plan, Jesse, and the resident historian cowboy, CJ. Gentlemen, how we doing this weekend?
Man, it's a beautiful Sunday. I'm ready to talk some wrestling. We've had a lot of action this week, from heel promos to squash matches to some AEW content. So it's going to be a good show.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to hop back on here. I missed meeting with you guys last week and discussing the going on. So I think we better get to it and catch up.
Yeah, we had to let a few things kind of build up over the past couple of weeks. We're in that lull before WrestleMania where some weeks might be hit, some weeks might be missed. But we're back. We got some great content today. We're going to take a little history lesson to the WCCW days. But let me reference this man just below me on screen. My man Kelvin from the No Gimmicks podcast. You might have saw we dropped a video just after Elimination Chamber where Jesse joined him. Kelvin, thank you for joining us, man.
No problem, guys. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on today. It's a great day to talk some wrestling.
Absolutely. Sundays are the best days for wrestling talk. Tell us a little bit about your podcast, man. How did you get started on that?
Well, No Gimmicks itself is it's a product of the pandemic. We started around 2020, right when the world was shutting down, as most podcasts around that time did. It was a result of the pandemic. Me and my friend, we also talked a lot of wrestling. Back then, we were heavy Bullet Club fans, so big on New Japan. And we were like, you know what? We talk so much wrestling, let's just make a podcast. So No Gimmicks became a product of that. Formulating the podcast to be our authentic selves, which is why it's No Gimmicks. Where you see it's our unfiltered thoughts on how we feel about the wrestling industry, what's going on with the wrestling industry. From that, it's led on to projects to, working with people, getting interviews with people. And I interviewed the Hardys. Very fun interview. Got to interview the Hardys. That led to UFL coverage. I covered the UFL with another podcast called BCP Plus. Shout out to BCP Plus. And that's opened up so many doors. So shout out to No Gimmick. Shout out to the Dat Feeling Podcast Network, which we're a part of. So
awesome.
That's awesome, man. It sounds like you got started a lot like us. I don't know if Jesse told you much about us, but the three of us used to get together at karaoke bars and hanging out at parties and whatnot, and we would annoy our wives by sitting there talking for hours on end about wrestling. And it finally came up where they were like, y'all need to do some other type of way of talking about wrestling where it's not taken away from having fun here at what have you. So
yeah, that's exactly how No Gimmicks started, because our wives were friends before we were.
Yeah.
So they introduced us like, you guys both talk an insanely amount of wrestling, so you might as well just hear. And we became very good friends, like brothers. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Big shout out to Crander Q from Friends of the Squared Circle. He's in our Facebook live chat right now, just saying hi, friends. So give us all, drop all your handles. Where are you at? Where can we find your podcast?
So you can find us. We actually do have a website, thedfpn.com. So if you go to thedfpn.com/no gimmicks, we're on there. We also on all streaming platforms. Search the No Gimmicks podcast. We're on all those platforms, and yeah, we're on every social media. Is at No Gimmicks DFPN. So we're not
Gotcha.
hard to find.
Awesome. Now, Jesse, you were on the podcast with him after Elimination Chamber. I was telling Kelvin before the show, their entrance music makes ours seem really, really weak. Their entrance music for the podcast is a banger. Tell me, give us a little insight about your time on the podcast with Kelvin. How was it?
Man, I tell you what, he had a lot of viewer feedback. We got a lot of comments that night about the John Cena heel turn. We were popping from the start. But let's not hate on our own entrance music that much. Now your kid came up with it, so we gotta give some credit where some credit is due.
That's awesome.
Yeah. My kid is a audio engineer at Full Sail University in Orlando, and I told him I needed entrance music. He was like, "What do you want?" I said, "Think Five Finger Death Punch and Shine Down." He goes, "I got you."
Oh, that's awesome, man.
It kind of helps that I used to be a professional wrestler, so like that's our little MO here. I'm the worker, Jesse's the fan, CJ's the guy who knows everything.
That's a great formula, honestly.
Hey, I get it. Now, your podcast being called No Gimmicks. I watched your most recent episode, and your co-host, I feel like he's created himself a little bit of a gimmick there.
you talking about D? No, that is 100% him.
That's him? Okay.
That is 100% him.
Because his screen, lights are down. He had sunglasses on. The ambiance was all set. Like he was in full bad guy mode. It's like Razor Ramon mixed with Darth Vader from Star Wars. Like I was like, what do we got going on here?
That's funny that you say that because those are two of his biggest. Like he's a big fan of Vader and he's a big fan of Scott Hall. So
wow,
that's funny that you come up with that because that's
him.
Head. That is not a gimmick. That is 100% him.
All right. Now, last question I got to ask you before we move on with the rest of our show. Who knows more about wrestling? Is it you or is it your man?
You know what? He's the historian. He really is. He's the historian, and he's an encyclopedia of knowledge. You can ask him anything about it, and he could point to a time in history to where it correlates with. Like he's comparing this one, and I actually agree with him. He's comparing this WrestleMania season to WrestleMania 2000. And I'm like, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
It makes a lot of sense.
That's a great comparison.
Yeah, that is. So when was your favorite era, though? Like you said, he's a historian, but is there one part of the WWE or the wrestling world that you know for a fact he ain't gonna get you on?
Oh, it's the current stuff because I'm more tuned in currently than he is, so it would be the current stuff.
Gotcha.
But okay. we're kind of what on eras because we're the same age, so we watched a lot. We agree on a lot of things, but I would say for as far as off the top of your head, knowing the knowledge, he nails it every time.
Gotcha. Well, man, sit back, buckle up. We're about to have ourselves a banger of an episode. He'll be with us for the whole duration of the show as we go through the filthy sheets to have a little history lesson with our historian, CJ. And then we're going to try my little, we're going to call it Queen of the Mountain. Is that what you want to call it, Jesse?
I mean, that's what I labeled it as.
That's what you labeled it as. Okay, changing up my shit. I appreciate you. I'm kidding. All right, fellas, let's get into the filthy sheets here. We're gonna get AEW out of the way. Y'all already know we are not big fans of AEW, but they hit the news recently over the past week, and I'm gonna start right off the bat with the spot that everybody is calling the dumbest thing on TV this week, and that is Spike, the nailed barbed wire, the nail bat or the 2x4 or what have you that Moxley Took a suplex on from Cope, formerly known as Edge. I don't know why he just shortened his last name. It makes no sense. He's losing his mind. Jesse, we're seeing more and more the AEW is just doing stupid, pointless shit over these past couple of weeks, and this is just the cherry on top, man. Talk to me about it.
I mean, I've seen the video of the suplex. I've seen the video of Wheeler Yuta trying to get the spike out of his back. All I can say about it is if Moxley takes that suplex the wrong way, lands the wrong way, lands a couple of inches to the left or the right, that spike does major damage. Not to mention it's already stuck in his back anyway, and Wheeler Yuta can't get it out, and the ref can't. Now, how much of that was actual the spike is stuck, and how much of it was AEW trying to play up the fact that the spike was stuck? I don't know.
Now, if you go back and watch that video, when the referee is pulling on it, you can see there's a fold of skin wrapped. Like, you can see part of Mox's back folded over in one of those spikes. Like, CJ, is there a call for that? I mean, I know we're talking about AEW trying to be more hardcore, more, giving fans the blood and guts, but was that really necessary?
So I'm having a hard time rationalize why they would do it on free, cable television. To me, something to that magnitude should be saved for a PLE or a special event. That's not something you just want to show. There's a lot of buildup that could be had. And this is it kind of calls back to where I've always said that, Jon Moxley is trying to be Onita, is trying to be Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling. And I just see more and more of that. Like they're trying to be a bigger CZW. And really, I mean, that's a niche of the fan base that they're going for, but I just don't know if I need to see that on a weekly basis.
Yeah, and that seems to be what they're going for. They're constantly hitting those high-risk spots with weapons and what have you. Calvin, we're all about the same age here, and we come from a time when the Attitude Era was all about, we had the hardcore, we had ECW, but how did this spot make you feel when you finally saw it? How did it resonate with you?
I'm glad you led with that. And I was going to compare this. If we want to go hardcore, like ECW has some hardcore stuff, right? That particular spot, I didn't mind it. I didn't mind it as much as I minded the finish, right? Because if you're going to have that type of spot, then Jon Moxley should absolutely not be coming back from that spot. The fact that he won that match is what made that spot for me. It didn't hit as hard. But honestly, if you're gonna be violent, that's fine, but make it make sense. They have been showing Spike enough times for me to be like, is this a prop? Like, is this actually real? So when he suplexed them on it and they actually showed it, I was like, oh, that's absolutely real. So psychology wise, that spot, the next time I see Spike, what am I to think? Somebody's actually going to get hurt by this thing, right? So in that sense, it kind of works for me. What didn't work for me was the fact that you did this spot. To CJ's point, you did it on national TV. You did it on free television. I probably would have wanted it like the Cinder Block with Hangman and Swerve. Yep. Save a spot like that for a pay-per-view, PLE, whatever you want to call it. Save that spot for that. But to have that spot and Moxley win was a terrible call for me.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of talk about Moxley as the AEW champion this run. There's a lot of people saying that this run is just not it, and the Death Riders just don't make sense. It's like AEW's trying to force the Death Riders down our throats. CJ, he's got a match coming up at Dynasty with Swerve Strickland. Would you rather see a guy of the caliber ability of Swerve Strickland take the title off of Moxley, or do you think that the AEW brass is just, they're pushing this bad boy hardcore? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I'm trying to figure out what the storyline is with either one of them. I absolutely love Swerve Strickland in the ring. I think he's amazing, and I know that Jon Moxley can he can really wrestle. But I think they're just kind of going in different directions with what the stories are trying to tell. And at the end of the day, I don't really care who wins, and that's not a good situation to be in.
Yeah. Now, Kelvin, there hasn't been much story with Mox being the heavyweight champion. You think we can get back to that if Swerve beats him at Dynasty?
It has to be about the title because there's nothing else to connect him and Swerve other than Swerve being the number one contender. So at some point, regardless of what this Death Rider thing has been about, they've been talking about the young guys. They started with the young guys not caring about AEW and nobody being worthy enough to be the champion. That's why you don't see the title. At some point, you have to make this thing about the title. It has to be because, in my opinion, Swerve has been throughout this decline. He's been the bright spot of AEW. Right, we can all agree that AEW's audience has declined. The product hasn't been as stellar as it was in 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
Swerve has been a bright spot in all of that, right? He's been the guy that you can continually rely on. So I think for it to get back to a place to where there is some hope, and I've been keeping tabs on the AEW. The product they've tried to change it. There's a gradual shift in the culture when it comes to them. To complete this turn, you have to get the title off Jon Moxley. You have to, because that's one of the things that keeps the sour taste in fans' mouths is the fact that this run has been lackluster for them. I don't know if they had bigger plans for this run and it just fell through, but it's not working. So get the title off of him. That's step one. Step two is then focusing that title on somebody like a Swerve who has been a bright spot for AEW.
Yeah, I can't disagree more. Swerve Strickland is probably one of the hottest stars on the planet right now. His matches are entertaining. He's got the Jey Uso entrance factor with Prince Nana dancing him to the ring. The music is original, but he's a local guy, and he's one of those guys that you just can't argue with him in the ring. Jesse, speaking of unorthodox and things not making sense, what did you tell me before the show about the AEW Women's Champion Toni Storm? Is she going off the rails?
So before I get to that, I just want to say one of my favorite quotes about professional wrestling. And it comes from a man named Jim Cornette.
Okay.
And he says, I can hit a motherfucker with a baseball bat as hard as anybody else, but that doesn't make me Ric Flair. These spots that AEW are doing are not necessarily what I would consider professional wrestling. Is it hardcore? Yes. Is it death match? Yes. Do I like death matches? No, because the word death is heavily involved in the match. And these guys are putting themselves at serious risk for literally almost next to nothing in most cases in front of almost nothing crowds.
Well, all right, hold on. I have to interject here for just a second, okay? Deathmatch has a cult following. And I say that because in 2009, in my career, I had a year-long feud with a man who was known as the king of the deathmatch in the South. He went by the name of Freak Show. Most of the scars, and y'all can't see much of it, but most of the scars right here on my forehead are from that man. This was a year-long feud over our Fed's heavyweight championship, and there is an art to the death match. It's not just about how much you bleed and how much you do, but it has a cult following. If you look up IWA Mid-South, Deep South, any of the IWA incarnations, they can pack out a building for this death match stuff. But continue.
Oh, I'm not in any way, shape, form, or fashion saying that it doesn't have a cult following, because it does. Yeah. ECW had a cult following.
Yeah.
Now, back to the topic at hand with Toni Storm. Can somebody please explain to me how she's getting away with the promos that she's cutting lately? She's saying some things in her promos lately that I'm not sure, number one, how they haven't been censored. You, lady, there's kids in the audience and you're saying this shit. Some of the videos I've seen is, she says, y'all all know how Toni Storm swings, so put your keys in the bowl and let's go.
Referencing an orgy. Okay.
And, one of her other videos that I saw, she told another female wrestler, my God, you're a big bitch. And went on to say that I'm going to make your thighs quake and your body shake, and I'm going to leave with this strap on. referencing the title.
She's even been known to tell the women that she's facing in the ring that she's going to rip their tits off, and the fans eat it up. I mean, they absolutely love it. So, Kelvin, you said you follow along with the AEW product. How do you feel about Toni Storm's promos?
Okay, I'm gonna go to that promo because she says she is a big bitch. And the bigger they are, the harder they come. Yeah. Which, for me, was hilarious. I'm not gonna lie. Mm-hmm. That was hilarious. But two, you also have to look at the rating, right? AEW is not PG, it's rated TVMA, so discretion. Follow the discretion at your leisure, right? There's a reason WWE censors these things because they are not rated TVMA. By the way, they're on Netflix, they still censor. Netflix is not making that call. WWE is actually making that call. So you have to go product placement, rating. That rating gives them a little bit of freedom. So I'm not going to hammer them as hard as I would if it were PG. So for me, rating kind of matters there. If it's rated TVM or MA 14, fine. Go ahead and do your thing.
There you go. CJ, weigh in. I see you're following Kelvin here.
Yeah, he's exactly right. You got to remember, like in the old days of the Attitude Era Raw, you had two shows. You had Monday Night Raw and Raw is War, where the rating would switch between the hours. That's why they'd have a new lead in. And like I was saying with AEW is they're not trying really to compete with WWE right now. I think they're trying to get the demographic that the Attitude Era had at the time. They're trying to get that blood and guts, freaking hormonal teenage guy that's all about the freaking death matches. Because I used to tape trade for Cactus Jack and Terry Funk and the FMW stuff with Vader. I loved that when I was 16, 17 years old. And I also liked the sex appeal when I was 16 or 17-year-old. And personally, I think that it's not a bad idea. And right now, if their numbers are tanking, then you have to do something different or you're doomed to freaking fail. And I don't mind it. I actually like these promos, and I agree with Kelvin that with the TVMA rating should temper expectations of parents and people in the crowd.
Yeah, now, Jesse, I'm going to get back to you because this was your original topic. I want you to be the devil's advocate here. Why doesn't it work for you?
Man, okay, 20 years ago, these promos would have worked for me. If we're talking late 90s, early 2000s, these promos would have worked for me, right? Because at the time, we were still in the transition between the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era.
Okay.
So we still had a lot of the stuff going on with the divas and the sexuality, and the hardcore title was still somewhat relevant, even though it was held by Gilbert. Just call it what it is. But now, with everything that we've seen in professional wrestling, all the allegations against Vince McMahon and so on and so forth, some of these promos, man, you can't sit here and have one female superstar saying that AEW is the home of the women's revolution and your women's champion come out saying shit like that.
He's got a fair point. Point. CJ, you look like a light bulb just went off. Go ahead.
No, man, Jesse, the only thing that changed is you got older. You're no longer the teenage boy that's all about puppies. It's all about watching Sable walk to the ring. It doesn't do it for you like you used to. But there's a lot of wrestling fans out there that are teenage boys that are probably really into this situation and are like, hey, yeah, this is what I want to watch. I don't care about this old man Cena's last run.
Yeah, but how many questions do you feel like answering on the drive home from an AEW show when your kid's in the backseat going, what does she mean by put your keys in the bowl and let's go?
Yeah.
How do you explain that to a prepubescent teenager without scarring them for life?
Look, as a father of four, CJ, I gotta agree. I don't want to answer that question if I'm riding home and my young one's like, Daddy, why did she say put your keys in the bowl? That's rough. Because look, we're gonna take this off of wrestling real quick. Y'all know the conspiracy about the Grinch movie with Jim Carrey, right? When he landed in Louisville and he was outside the old lady's house and everybody was putting their keys in the bowl, yeah. He landed outside of a swinger party in Whoville. I mean, They just referenced this on AEW. Explain that to my kids? Like, I don't know about that. Kelvin, come on, man. Talk to me.
Hey, man, if Disney can plant some subliminal stuff for the adults, hey, kids ain't got to get it all the time.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I love it. We're a little hit and miss here, but while we're on the AEW subject, guys, I have to bring this up because it's stirring up so much controversy online. We know our last show 2 weeks ago, it was announced that Lex Luger is being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame this year. And there's a lot of call for Sting, who is a longtime friend, tag team partner of his, to be the one that inducts him into the WWE Hall of Fame. He himself is a WWE Hall of Famer. But now there's people saying that Tony Khan should not allow it since Sting is still essentially under an AEW contract. The argument being that he let Billy Gunn do it when DX got inducted into the Hall of Fame a few years back. Calvin, I'm going to start with you here. Do you think this is getting to be a little bit of a, back and forth nitpicky crap, or do you think Tony Khan is eventually going to let Sting do this because it is Lex Luger?
Well, I think this goes back. I think the center of this argument is Sting's retirement match and the lack of representation that he got for that match. Because I know he wanted some things that he didn't get. Specifically, I think he wanted Lex Luger there, but Lex Luger was on the WWE Legends deal, if I'm not mistaken. There was some controversy involving WWE not letting certain talents.
Kevin Nash, I think it was Kevin Nash who wasn't allowed to go or something like that.
So I think that's the center of this argument. And Tony does have a record of letting people, for instance, he let Chris Jericho and Daniel Bryan do some WWE work. He has a record of letting people, the Billy Gunn situation, letting them go and do things with WWE. Chris Jericho actually did a podcast with Stone Cold.
Yep.
And, he has a track record of doing that. I think for Tony, if your track record is allowing people to do that, then I think you should keep up with it. That's just me personally. But I can also understand that at some point you got to stop being a nice guy if WWE is not going to play nice with you. So me personally, I'd love to see Sting induct Lex because that's history. That goes back to WCW and all the things that they went through, the life-changing with Sting and Lex Luger personally. For him to be able to induct Lex Luger would be the icing on the cake. Plus, it's time for Lex to go into the Hall of Fame. So it's been way overdue. And if you're going to have anybody do it, it should be Sting. So on that note, I'd love to see Sting do it. But I could understand if Tony Khan has reached this point where I don't want to play nice anymore, I'm not gonna let Sting do it if he's under contract with AEW. I can totally understand both sides of that argument.
Yeah, Jesse, I want to take it back to the last AEW star to make an appearance on WWE TV was Billy Gunn at the DX Hall of Fame induction. And there was that line where Billy Gunn said, he can't fire me because I don't work here. And Triple H's response was, if you're not careful, he will buy that pissant company just to fire you. Do you think after that line, that would be a way for Tony Khan to say, you know what, fuck you, you're not getting any of my guys anymore?
I mean, I could see Tony Khan going that direction because of that line. And that's what I was going to bring up was that specific line. Now, you have to understand this was also Degeneration X being inducted into the Hall of Fame. So there was going to be some tomfuckery going on with that induction. Now, that being said, like Kelvin said, I would like to see Sting do it. It makes the most sense from a historic standpoint, from a work standpoint. It all makes sense for Sting to do it. Who else are you going to have induct Lex Luger?
I agree. Now, CJ, we know the history of Lex Luger. He had that short run as the narcissist in WWE. He body slammed Yokozuna aboard the battleship. Yeah,
the USS Intrepid.
There you go. I always want to say Enterprise, and I'm like, oh, Star Trek is invading my mind. But when it comes to his legacy as far as WCW goes, he was on the debut episode of Nitro where he was supposedly still under contract with WWE, but he wasn't. How much sense does it make for Sting to induct Luger based on their relationship and the history they have, like Kelvin said?
Well, they really were friends. I mean, they owned a gym together in Georgia, and really the ins and outs of the Four Horsemen storylines with Lex and Sting were pretty important. Whether it was them doubting Sting or Lex being a member of the Four Horsemen, or even Sting being a member of the Four Horsemen and getting people, they turned their back on him. So their histories are intertwined, and they really were breaking through in WCW at the time together. And I think he really is the best choice. I think if he does it, the condition will be he won't wear the makeup. I think Sting will be out there as Steve Borden and not as Sting.
But does that really make sense, though? Because, I mean, let's face it. If I go to, say, 100 wrestling fans and I ask them who Steve Borden is, I'm guaranteeing only about 40% are going to tell me that he's Sting.
The only people watching the Hall of Fame
wrestling fans, huh?
The only people watching the Hall of Fame are already wrestling fans. The Hall of Fame's not getting new wrestling fans.
Okay, I can agree with that. Now, is there a case, though, and I'm going to ask all three of you this, anybody can chime in, but is there a case for DDP to do it with how closely him and Luger are working right now with the DDP yoga and how close they've been getting with DDP? We all know what DDP's been doing with his DDP yoga, the transformations that he's made in people's lives. Is there a case for DDP to do it?
I mean, I guess you could make a case for DDP to do it. I don't know how strong that case would be. It's not going to be as strong as Sting because, like CJ said, from their time in WCW, whether it was part of the Four Horsemen against each other, part of the NWO Wolfpack, whatever, their stories were intertwined in WCW. So I don't know that Diamond Dallas Page has as much of a shot to do it as, say, Sting does. But if they don't go with Sting, DDP would be the next logical option.
Kelvin, do you think DDP is the backup in case WWE can't secure Sting?
I could see that. I could see either him or Kevin Nash, one of the two. And both would make sense if you can't get Sting.
Yeah.
So
I just don't.
I would rather it be Sting.
Yeah, I just don't know anybody else close enough to Lex Luger that could do it if it's not Sting or DDP. CJ?
It could be Lex. I mean, it could be Ric Flair. That's the only other one.
Okay. So we're going to keep an eye on that, obviously, as we get closer to WrestleMania. We're just a few weeks out from that. But moving on, let's switch gears off of the AEW and head over to the WWE. We have to talk about the elephant in the room, and we have to talk about the John Cena promo live from Brussels, Belgium, this past Monday night on Raw. The heat he got was it was atmospherical. It was just, I can't even come up with the word, but there was a line that he said in that promo where he said, "I am not a babyface. I am not a heel. I am being real." And that's resonating so much with me because he was the guy for 20 plus years. He was the guy to do everything that Vince and Brass asked him to do. Jesse, this is the poster boy. This is Big Match John, the guy who could do no wrong in WWE's eyes, and he's shooting straight from the hip in this promo, if I'm being honest. Tell me how you felt about his words in the promo.
Man, I watched that whole promo. I didn't watch it live. I watched it on replay because they aired it at 2:00 Central Time because they were in Belgium. But the whole time he's cutting this promo, I couldn't see any lie in it. Even the part where he's like, "For 15 years, y'all have made me the butt of an invisible man joke, and it's not funny." You know, yeah. He all but said, "Fuck them kids."
We know about the little kid in the front row who was
he called out a little kid wearing a John Cena shirt and was like, "What have you done for me?" And I'm like, that dude's 12. He bought your shirt. He convinced his parents to buy your shirt. That's what he did. He put merchandise money in your pocket, John. That's what he's done. Now you think about all the Make-A-Wish stuff John's done over the last 20, 25 years. You think about all the good Samaritan acts that he's done in that regard, right? If I'm John Cena, I don't do it anymore for a while. Like, I stopped doing it. Because, like, even he said during his promo, you get nothing. You wanted new entrance music? Nope. You wanted new merchandise? Nope. You wanted a new John Cena? Nope. You get nothing. It was the most real John Cena promo I've seen cut in probably 20 years, even more real than his Dr. Thugonomics stuff. There was no word life. There was no rap. There was no, nothing. Maybe this was the John Cena that's been behind the scenes the whole time, and we just never got a chance to see it because they didn't want to let him cut these kind of promos.
Yeah. Now, CJ, I'm getting to you in just a minute. I've got the question for you. Kelvin, we saw in this promo there was so much emotion behind John that you felt that line when he said it was real. Is this one of those things where it's like it's about time for us as the fans because we've pushed so long for this heel turn?
My honest opinion, I think this is long overdue. That promo was long overdue. And I don't think it should have been cut in Brussels. I think he should have cut that one in America because the American fans have been the most egregious when it comes to everything that he was saying. He should have said that right to their face because those are the fans that have made him the butt of the jokes. They have said that he should turn heel. They've said that he should change his gear. They've said all these things, and everything that he said, spot on truth. I changed my story. What do I get? That's what the fans are saying. Even then, they're saying, what do we get out of this heel run? Is he going to stay heel the entire run? So I think he should have cut that one in front of an American audience because it absolutely would have got way more heat than it would have in Brussels. Shout out to the Brussels fans. They let him have it. But that promo in front of an American audience who I believe, because I'm one of them, the Let's Go Cena sucks people, that originated in America. You should have let them have it. Let them give them all the pieces of your mind and watch that place go nuclear. I believe that promo was long overdue. I like the way he gaslit the crowd because he totally made himself the victim, right? Yeah. And I enjoyed everything about it. I listened to this promo about 5 times. First time, I did not like it. And it was because it wasn't about the title, which Cody made this about the title the week prior. Yep. He said, you're going after 17. Cena didn't mention the title at all. He put this squarely on the fans. So I would have liked that to have happened in front of an American audience. That was my only. The promo is great. It's masterful. He manipulated the hell out of this crowd. Had them in the palm of his hand. By the end of that promo, the crowd agreed with Cena somewhat. They still booed him, but it wasn't as loud as it was when he first came out. It was nuclear. By the end of that, he had changed their mind a little bit. So,
and I think it even worked with the people watching at home because that was something that Jesse mentioned to me. He was like, dude, why is John Cena making sense in everything he's saying?
So much sense. So much sense.
Now, CJ, you ready for this, right?
Sure, let's see.
Bash at the Beach, 1994. The very first promo by Hulk Hogan after his heel turn had nothing on this promo that John Cena cut. And I'm saying this because there are lists galore online about what is now the greatest heel turn. Is it John Cena or is it Hulk Hogan? In my opinion, is that Hogan's promo compares nothing to what John Cena cut this past Monday. But I need your opinion. 100%. What resonates more with you, the Hogan turn or the Cena turn? And how did his promo make you feel after you heard it?
Well, the beauty of the John Cena promo is it has the gift of hindsight. And Hulk Hogan was the first superstar that no one ever thought would go heel that went heel. And he had a lot of help from Hall and Nash and even had a cool guy promo because he wasn't cool. That's why he stopped. That's why he started getting booed in WCW. And that's really what, was the impetus to make it happen. John Cena is taking a page out of Heel Wrestling 101, where it's like you have to convince yourself that you're the good guy. And that's what this promo was all about. This promo was him justifying everything he did and everything he's going to do. And that right there was that's what a real heel is. You don't have to go out there and say, I'm going to cut a heel promo. No, you just have to go out there and act that role. I'm doing this because y'all made me do this. This is why I cheat. This is why I lie. This is why I steal. This is why I'm dastardly. Because I'm the best and y'all are keeping me down. And see, that's why I'm really wanting to see where it goes, because it all depends on where it ends, Chris. I told you the biggest heel ever was Vince McMahon. But the biggest heel turn is still going to be from yellow and red to black and white until the storyline plays itself out.
Jesse, do you agree with that? Does Hogan's heel turn is it still the number one heel turn of all time? Or are we should it be neck and neck?
I think it's more neck and neck than most people are giving it credit for, to be completely honest. It's you're talking about two once in a generation talents like Hulk Hogan and John Cena, who nobody ever thought would turn heel. Now, don't get me wrong, one of the heel turns spawned off one of the greatest factions of all time.
Mm-hmm. The NWO, yep.
And so I kind of got to agree with CJ to an extent. It all depends on how we get to the destination with this John Cena thing and what we get as an end result of it, as to whether or not it ends up actually being one of the greatest heel turns of all time. Now, it may be one of the greatest heel turns as far as promo work is concerned, because, we haven't seen a promo go that long since I Am the Game, and I'm going to talk like this for 20 minutes, in the middle of this ring.
Hey, you better not hate on that promo from January 2002. That was the greatest promo Triple H ever cut when he came back from the quad injury. Don't hate now.
No, I'm talking about The Rock making fun of it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, The Rock I'm sorry. I thought you were
The Rock
about
went
the
like
return
20. No, I'm talking about when the Rock made fun of him for doing it to try to draw heel heat. Rock went like 25 minutes in that promo.
Yeah.
And so, from a promo standpoint, I guess you could say the John Cena heel turn's got to be one of the biggest heel turns ever, but it's still neck and neck with Hogan if you ask me.
Calvin, when I brought that similarity between the two up to CJ, it's because of his he said that was a moment where he became a bigger fan because it was something that was like, it's about time he did something different. Do you feel like with this turn on with John Cena, it's for a lot of us who have been pushing for it, it's like, finally it's about time, right? Like, does it resonate as the same as Hogan's, or is it on a whole different level?
This is, for me, it's different. And the reason it is different, because if you got to compare anything to Hogan's heel turn automatically wins, bro. Like that's for me. Mm-hmm. So this is in a class where, yes, I like the uniqueness of John's heel turn, especially as he announces his retirement, because he started as a heel, and once he turned face, he never turned back. So I want him to end it as a heel, because it's kind of like the closing of the circle, if you will. He goes out on his terms. He get to have his fun. He could win the 17 championship, break a record that people don't really want him to break, put it in their faces while he breaks the record and goes on to ride off into the sunset his way. I mean, as a face, I don't know if he actually get away with it. You get a lot more sympathy that way, but I'm going out my way, which is exactly what that promo was about. It's like, I'm not doing this for you anymore. I'm breaking up with you guys, as a matter of fact. Like, this is about me and what I want to be happy. So on that note, I like his heel turn. And I like the promo because it gives you room for the future. Whether or not this will be as big as Hogan's heel turn, like CJ said, that remains to be seen. But I like where we are in the whole scheme of things.
I agree. I love the fact that we're sitting here debating this because it's coming down to one of those things where it's a generational thing now. You can't compare apples to apples when you've got it's like the argument of who the greatest basketball player of all time is, because you have a lot of people saying Jordan, you have a lot of people saying LeBron. They're both generational talents, and this is a generational situation here when you've got the Cena turn and the Hogan turn. So I still think there's a lot of missing elements to the storyline, though. We still need to see where The Rock is going to play out in all this, what Travis Scott's going to do. He's holding a title that is not being defended or even used. He's the hardcore champion for some ungodly reason, but as we get closer to WrestleMania, I'm sure we're going to find out. But speaking of WrestleMania, guys, one of the biggest matches that I can honestly say of this year was just announced this past Friday on SmackDown. Our tribal chief, Roman Reigns, one of us, versus the visionary, the revolutionary, Seth freaking Rollins versus the voice of the voiceless, the Second City Saint himself, CM Punk. This match has been brewing since War Games. This match has been brewing since WrestleMania of last year. This match has been brewing since the number 3 on most lists, heel turns of all time, Seth Rollins turning on the Shield 10 years ago. I'm going to start with you, CJ, because you obviously not a fan of the Tribal Chief, but tell me why this is going to be one of the biggest matches in WrestleMania history when you have 3 polarizing figures like Punk, Rollins, and Reigns in a triple threat match.
The reason why I think this match really is going to be awesome is because these 3 wrestlers are fantastic in the ring. They're fantastic at cutting promos, and they all have presence. And I think that in a match like this, they're all going to have an opportunity to shine. Rollins and Reigns have had bangers upon bangers. CM Punk can always go. And I think if there's no major stakes on the line, having 3 incredible promo cutting machines that can go is a key to success.
Yeah. Now, Jesse, we know that Punk is on this. He's been on this run for the past 2 years since he came back, where he wanted that main event spot at WrestleMania, and it's always just been right there at his fingertips. How much does this match mean to him with his relationship with Rollins? I know, look, I'll tell anybody that on-screen heat that him and Rollins have is a work. There's a very close relationship between him and Rollins, and then you throw in Roman Reigns, who is arguably one of the greatest characters on TV right now. What does this match mean for CM Punk leading into WrestleMania?
I mean, this could be the WrestleMania where CM Punk has a match that steals the show. May not be the main event, but it could lead into CM Punk having a main event at WrestleMania next year, depending on how this match goes. Like CJ said, it's going to be a banger of a match. These 3 guys have presence. They're all good in the ring. They're good on the mic. We got to remember Punk's still owed a favor by Paul Heyman. And Heyman's been known to screw over his own guys for other people.
Yeah.
He's done it to Brock Lesnar. He's done it to the Big Show. He's done it countless times.
Yeah.
Who knows how Paul Heyman factors into this thing at WrestleMania?
Yeah. Now, Kelvin, he kind of jumped the gun on me. He usually has a habit of doing that, but I love him to death. We saw on Friday night in the promo, Rollins and Reigns were already in the ring. Punk comes down to an amazing ovation from that crowd in Spain or Italy. And then his promo from the top rope, he thanked Paul for serving up Roman Reigns on a silver platter, and Roman had no choice but to look back and, are you serious? And Paul wasn't cowering like he normally would. No, my tribal chief. He was just, can we see a Paul Heyman turn in this match? Do you think it'll happen?
The possibility is definitely there, and they planted that seed in the moment you're talking about. So it definitely could happen. And as Jesse brought up, Punk is still owed that favor. And I like the story that they're telling here. They've been telling this story very subtly for a long time. When Paul went away in the bloodline, we don't know what Paul was doing. We know that Punk came and he said that was my wise man first. So the fact that Paul is in this story for a reason. Something is going to happen and it's going to involve Paul. Whether that's he stays with Roman Reigns, I don't think so. I think he turns on him and he aligns himself with CM Punk. I think that's what's going to happen. But love the story, love the setup, and I love that we're now looking at Paul Heyman as a suspect in a case that involves 3 megastars.
Yeah, now let me throw something out there for you guys because my mind's always twisting. But CJ, what if Heyman pulled a double turn and turned on Punk and Reigns and joined Rollins?
I think really anything is possible in today's WWE. Up until this year, I was, we were all pretty good about predicting exactly what was going to happen, and I've been getting swerved left and right this year, and I, for one, love it. Whether it's EO capturing the women's title or just all manner of things, and I'm excited. And honestly, Chris, it could happen. I think the storytelling with Paul Heyman's character is going to be a little bit longer term than that, but I mean, who knows?
Jesse, who benefits more at this point in their careers to having Paul Heyman in their corner? Would it be the aged CM Punk? I mean, he's 42 years old. He's not a young guy anymore. We've seen him at times look rough in the ring. Does Roman keep his wise man, or would it make sense to have a Paul Heyman run with Seth freaking Rollins?
I don't really think it makes sense to have him go with Seth Rollins because Seth Rollins doesn't need that mouthpiece. Seth Rollins can hold his own on the mic. Seth Rollins doesn't need a wise man. Seth can hold his own. The whole wise man thing was more or less a managerial thing for Roman to try to get him over and to pull strings. Seth doesn't need that. CM Punk could probably benefit from something like that. And, at this point in his career, especially with said owed favor, who knows when that comes into play. But maybe Roman still benefits the most from it too, though. What happens if Roman loses his wise man?
Yeah. Now, Kelvin, I want you to put yourself in the mind of Triple H here for a second. You've got this match with 3 of the biggest stars in your company. And it's not the only triple threat match that we're being teased for WrestleMania. We still don't know if Rhea Ripley is going to get added to the Women's World Championship match with Io and Bianca Belair. But you've got Cody Rhodes versus John Cena. Obviously, is going to have to close out night 2. If you're booking this match, where do you put it?
That's tricky, right? And Triple H himself came out and said something very, very interesting to me. He said the main event's not set, and he wants them to fight for it. So if I'm looking at the landscape right now, I have 2 stories that are just jumping out the page for me. That's Cody versus John, and it's this triple threat with Seth, Roman, Punk, right? Obviously, with Jey Uso winning the Royal Rumble, he has to main event tonight. Unless we're going to break tradition. If we break tradition, then night 1 would be either Cody and Cena or that triple threat, which I would put that triple threat night 1 if I'm breaking tradition. Because we know that world title match is going to happen regardless. We're going to get it. We can have that on night 1. The main event of night 1 be the triple threat. Night 2 would be Cena versus Cody. That's because Triple H has been breaking all types of norms, right? Yeah. The norms have been broken. Usually the champion holds on to the belt. Rhea loses the belt on a Monday Night Raw. No one expects this to happen. No one expected Jey Uso to even win the Royal Rumble, let alone eliminate John Cena. So a lot of things are happening that we don't necessarily, it doesn't jive with us traditionally. So if we're breaking tradition, give me the triple threat on night one, Cody Cena night two. You can build the card around both matches for both nights, and it'll make sense.
I agree. CJ, if we are we going to really just throw aside the women's world championship match and make it like a semi-main event or something, or do you think that the women should deserve a main event spot on night one over one of these matches?
So if you look at social media, you'll see that both Seth Rollins and CM Punk have kind of downplayed having to be in the main event. And I really do think that Triple H is from the old school that believes that the title should headline. And I think that the women are going to headline night one.
Okay, so do you think that could this be a scenario where maybe you can jerk the curtain with this match, set the bar high, start everything on night one with this heated rivalry between these three men?
I mean, if you're going to start it out with a bang, that would be awesome. I don't know where they're going to put it on the card, but I'd hate to follow it.
Jesse, how would you feel? I see your special guest of the day has joined us a few times. Your buddy Ranger in the background barking his head off.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good, my guy. We're used to it. Where would you put this match? Obviously, we're going to take it out of a main event picture because of what what Kelvin and CJ have said. But would you open one of those nights with this match just for the night to start off with a banger?
I don't know that I would open the night with Punk, Rollins, and Roman. I could see it being co-main event of night one. If you're going to open the card with anything, unfortunately, it's probably going to end up being your women's title match, and it probably will be Rhea versus Io versus Bianca Belair. Because let's face it, Tiffany versus Charlotte, I don't know if you want to have it anywhere higher on the card than maybe midway through night one. But do you want both of your women's titles defended on the same night? I don't. If you're Triple H, I don't think so. I think you want to split it up to where one's defended one night, the other happens the other night. Obviously, Tiffany and Charlotte is the bigger of the two women's matches. Or that's the way they're pushing it. It's the way they're setting it up.
Yeah.
Especially after the promo we got on SmackDown this past Friday between Tiffany and Charlotte. They're setting it up to be like a passing of the torch thing almost.
And Charlotte won the Royal Rumble, so I mean, obviously she should get a higher booking than the other match, being that Io Sky just stole the title off of Rhea 2 weeks ago. So,
yeah, that Io Rhea match where Io wins the women's title, I did not see that coming. I could not have called that. It's like CJ said, it's been extremely unpredictable lately. So even some of the stuff that you've called, Chris, that normally you're probably 95% accurate, has not come to fruition yet. I don't know if they're holding stuff down for later on down the road or what the case may be, but it's yet to be seen how WrestleMania is going to play out this year. But if the way the year has gone so far is any indication, hold on to your seats, boys, because WrestleMania is going to be wild.
Yeah, and we don't even have the full card set right just now. I mean, I think we're three weeks away from WrestleMania, and there's still a lot to be determined. You've got Braun Breaker in the Intercontinental Championship. He's in that deal. You've got Penta, and there's so much uncertainty leading into WrestleMania. So we're definitely going to keep our eyes locked. Guys, that is the longest Filthy Sheets segment we have had since we started that, and I absolutely loved it. It was awesome. But now it's time, folks. We're going to take a little bit of a history lesson. I'm going to turn it over to our resident historian, CJ, as he takes us down a little bit of the WCCW territory days. CJ, talk to me about this World-Class Championship Wrestling. Is it, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know the territory days like you do, but didn't WCCW transition into WCW, or am I wrong?
No, that's incorrect. They did eventually merge with Continental to become USWA.
Okay.
But yeah, they were, and at one time they were a NWA territory as well. Really, the biggest character in the history of WCCW was the Dallas Sportatorium. No matter what happened with WCCW, the Dallas Sportatorium was always there. And a lot of people just want to go to the Von Erichs, but it's way before that. So you had this guy, right, named Bert Willoughby. And he was a wrestling promoter in Dallas, Texas. And he was instrumental in wrestling in the earliest 20th century. And he was kind of the cornerstone of the area. And so in the 1930s, he was the guy that started promoting wrestling in Dallas, and really the Dallas Sportatorium, which opened in 1935. And it became like a huge ticket in town. And so Bert Willoughby was really the grandfather or great-grandfather of WCCW. And on that first night that he ran wrestling in the Dallas Sportatorium, he hired a guy named Ed McLemore, who really is instrumental in the history of WCCW, but he was there pouring soda at the very first wrestling event in the Sportatorium. So if you don't know about the Sportatorium, it's an iconic venue in Dallas, and it goes all the way back to December 9th, 1935, for the first Texas Centennial Celebration. Now, when it first started, it was an octagon, like in shape, but eventually, I'll talk about that here in a sec. But it became famous not just for wrestling, but it also had a huge music scene, and they had this radio show called the Big D Jamboree that was based out of it. And despite all the wrestlers and CBS radio, they had like Chuck Berry played there, Ray Charles, Fats Domino. So it was one of the first venues that really had segregated crowds. Now they had what they called at the time whites and colored sections. They had them separated and spaced out, so it wasn't like all one side and all the other side. It kind of went section by section, so that was kind of unique at the time. And in 1953, the Sportatorium got destroyed by a fire, and it was allegedly an act of arson. But right around that same time was when WCCW left the NWA for the first time. And I always talk about how these guys were gangsters back in the day, in the territory days. And so chances are that it was set on fire by the other promoters in the NWA. And that's what they've always believed. And there's never any concrete proof of that. But when they rebuilt the Sportatorium, they built it as a rectangle. And that's kind of what most people remember. You see the pictures of it, and it's that big, white building. So I mentioned Ed McLemore, and he was born Edward Eugene McLemore in 1905. Now, he was pivotal in the birth of WCCW because he took over the entire promotion from Willoughby in 1940. So from 5 years, he went from pouring soda to being the owner of this wrestling federation and building, really. And in 1948, when Pinky George started the NWA, shortly thereafter, McLemore played a crucial role in kind of promoting the NWA's business in the Sportatorium until 1953. Then the building burned down, and then he joined again shortly thereafter. He was also real big in the music scene, and he actually managed Gene Vincent and Elvis Presley a little bit when they came through the territory of the building. That's kind of neat. And he partnered with this guy in 1966 named Jack Adkisson, and that's who we all know as Fritz Von Erich. And Fritz Von Erich and him worked together, and they didn't name it WCCW to begin with. They named it Big Time Wrestling, and it remained Big Time Wrestling until, for a while, because McLemore died in 1969, and then Fritz took over. And then in 1975, Fritz actually became the president of the NWA. And so in 76, you had Kevin make his debut. In 77, you had David make his debut. And in 78, you had Kerry make his debut. And in 1982, April 1st, actually, Big Time Wrestling was rebranded to be World Class Championship Wrestling. And it was kind of neat because they had these innovative pioneering television techniques. Like they were the first ones to have character vignettes. They were one of the first to have the musical entrances. And prior to 1982, they had the 2-camera shoot. in their building. And then they swapped finally to the multi-camera shoot. They featured 6 camera operators and then some shoulder-mounted cams. So if you look at the old wrestling shows, you'll actually see a lot of the cameraman in the shot. So it's kind of interesting. And if you ask me to describe what WCCW was to someone that never watched it, I'd say it was a wrestling federation that was built off the Von Erichs facing every one of their friends who eventually would turn their back on them. And that's what the whole territory is based off of. The golden era was from 1982, and it lasted all the way till 1984. And it's kind of funny because we think about these territories as lasting far longer than they ever did. Even TNA lasted longer than WCW did, but everyone seems to think that WCW was there forever. And though World Class did exist for a long time, during their heyday, it was really about a 3-year period. In 84, David Von Erich, that's when he passed away in the Japanese hotel room with acute enteritis. And there's a whole bunch of stories. I don't want to get too in the weeds on the tragedy that is the Von Erich brothers, because that's not what I'm really trying to explain right now.
Yeah.
It's just from 84, you had Kerry, that's when he won the title from Ric Flair in front of 32,000 fans. And then the next year they did it again, the David Von Erich Memorial, and they had 26,000 fans. But eventually, really because of no-shows and whatnot, it started declining. And then you had JCP and WWF started having this wide national appeal. And WCCW, in the end, they tried to merge into a super show with Continental and AWA called Super Clash, and it really wasn't good. And by that time, the major talents of WCCW were unreliable, and eventually Jerry Jarrett bought them out of debt, and they merged them together to become USWA, and it didn't last much longer. In 1990, the last Kevin Von Erich wrestled his last match in the Sportatorium, and it was the main event for the Texas Championship, but it kind of went out with a whimper, and it's kind of sad. I mean, I could go on forever on it, but I just wanted to give a brief history because people tend to think of just the Von Erichs as being the heart of WCCW when it really went back to the 30s. And really, the time I'm passionate about wrestling is I love the way that the NWA was ran. It was so gangster, it was so cool, it was so different, and it was cutthroat. These guys were not good people, but damn, they were good businessmen. And really, when WrestleMania 3 happened, that's my favorite time of the business is all the way up until WrestleMania 3, because I think that anything could have happened, and Vince McMahon was a visionary when it came to how he did his business. So I just wanted to cover that real quick. I wanted to give Mr. Willoughby and McAfee their due, and that's about it.
Yeah, the first time I remember hearing about the Dallas Sportatorium was the Stone Cold Steve Austin documentary on the old VHS tapes back when he talked about breaking into the business. CJ, when we think about, we'll just say wrestling venues, period, obviously the Mecca being Madison Square Garden, where does the Sportatorium rank as far as venues that have held professional wrestling?
Well, to be honest with you, from the outside looking, it's not there anymore, but from the outside looking in and even from the inside looking out, it was a crap hole, man. It wasn't a nice building at all. It was terrible. Everyone hated it, but at the same time, that was part of the allure. That was part of World Class. That's what made it, like, they used to hit people with potatoes. I mean, it was a rough and tumble territory. They did strong style before it was Japanese. And it was just really fun to watch. And that was part of the allure, is that people would pack that house week after week after week. It was a weekly territory. And they have to run different because they got to keep people coming into the building. To me, I do think Madison Square Garden and the Omni are probably 1 and 2 as far as the meccas of professional wrestling go. But right there, I got the Bingo Hall and the Sportatorium as being pretty up there as well.
Yeah, we can. I mean, look, I'm you know how I am. I'm from Philly, so my number 3 is always going to be 2300.
No, the Bingo Hall.
The Bingo Hall. So, and then of course you got the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City. It's iconic sense. Don't wave off the Hammerstein Ballroom, sir. So we're going to keep this segment going on for a little while because there's so much more history to WCCW than what it just ran. You said there's a lot of fall and decline, and it's not just about the Von Erichs. But did the Von Erichs and the Freebirds, that feud that those factions, if you will, had, that spawned so much in the world of professional wrestling, didn't it?
Yeah, it really did. But, on top of the Von Erichs, you had Gino Hernandez being found dead in his apartment in '86. And then when Jim Crockett really got a stranglehold of the NWA, WCCW left the NWA again. So it had an in and out relationship, very similar to how Vince Sr., as we call him, had a relationship with NWA, where if they didn't want to play ball with him, he left. And it was the reason why that he left in February of '86 was because Magnum TA was the heir apparent, and none of his boys were going to be the champion at that point. Like, it was going to go from Ric Flair to Magnum, and nobody could say anything different. I think that it's pretty much the consensus until Magnum got in his accident.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, we always love those history lessons. Jesse, you going to weigh in here?
Yeah, so, I know we're not going to dive too far into the weeds as far as any of the superstars that were part of WCCW, but it was more than just the Von Erichs and the Freebirds.
Absolutely.
You had Chris Adams, you had Bruiser Brody, you had Abdullah the Butcher. They would bring in young guys like Bam Bam Bigelow, the Dingo Warrior, who everybody knows better as the Ultimate Warrior, got his start there.
Did you say the Dingo Warrior?
That was his name in WCCW was Dingo Warrior. Yes.
Texas Red. I don't know if I've heard of that guy before.
Also known as the Undertaker.
Yeah, the Undertaker passed through there. Percy Pringle was a huge star in WCCW.
Hold on a second.
I mean, it is what it is.
Stop. I'm stuck. The dingo ate your baby. Oh, God. No, yeah, when I say that, like, I know professional wrestling, it's from when I was born till now. I was strictly WWE. There's not much about WWE that you can tell me and me not already know it, but I do know that WCCW was a starting point for a lot of the stars that we knew as coming into the golden era or even the new generation era of WWE. And I think it all boils down to when WCCW became defunct, because those guys all needed somewhere to go, i.e. Undertaker, Paul Bearer, the Dingo Warrior.
Let's not forget, Taker went to WCW first.
Yeah, and Mark Calloway
was point blank told he would never put butts in seats, that he would never sell. Yeah. And then in 1990, we got the Dead Man gimmick, or the Western Mortician Undertaker gimmick. And guess what? He put asses in seats.
For 30 years.
Yep.
Kelvin, how much you say your buddy D is more of the historian, but how much have you learned about the history that we probably all should know when it comes to things like WCCW and whatnot?
So I moved to Dallas a couple of years ago, and I was very aware of the scene of WCCW and how guys like Bruiser Brody, even some Jerry Lawler came through here at one point in time and was the champion. Like, there's a lot of history here, and the effect of that is still prevalent. So there's a promotion out here called Metroplex Wrestling. Models itself very closely to what WCCW was. By the way, it's ran by Athena, and the weekly television. There's people that go in faithful to the company, pack out the venue week in, week out. It operates on that level. The building itself it's kind of like the Sportatorium, not too huge. You can fit a decent sized crowd in there, and it's you can feel it. And one of the things that brought me more excitement than anything is that Dallas fans are actually really passionate about pro wrestling. Very passionate about pro wrestling. So you can see how stories like the Freebirds versus the Von Erichs, how they were able to fill up venues based off of that, or Kerry Von Erich versus Ric Flair, why it became a big deal. You could see the lineage still today based off of what WCCW was able to do.
That's awesome. I didn't know are you still living in the Dallas area now?
Yeah, so I live about 10 minutes from AT&T Stadium.
Awesome. So I see a paired question is if Warrior go before or after he worked with Watts, and he worked with Watts first. There's a whole section where UWF got purchased out by what would become WCW when Cowboy bought it, when Watts bought UWF. But yeah, he actually wrestled in afterwards.
Yeah, I was thinking of that in my mind. Like, was that when him and Sting were together? But that came a little bit after.
Yeah. Well, we love these history lessons by CJ, and I think we need to title this segment from here on out "Territory Tales," because I feel like you could give us so many stories about the territory days, and we could have this. Like, I think it'd be a weekly segment. Jesse, you think Territory Tales, Territory Talk, something along those lines?
I was going to go Territory Days, DAZE. So.
With the DAZE. Okay. Yeah, I like that.
I'm down with it.
Well, guys, moving on from one new segment to another, we got a video from our resident sergeant, Anderson. He sent it to us. It's from I was supposed to remember what it was, but I forgot. Let me find it on my messages here. It was a video from the Pick a Side podcast, and they did a King of the Hill WWE mid-card version, and he said this might be a good thing to try on your show. And I thought to myself, well, we could do something along those lines, and Jesse kind of decided to change the name up on it. So we're going to call this Queen of the Mountain. We're going to start with the female mid-cards, and I got a list of 10. I'm going to just randomly pick these names as we go, and there's 3 of you that are going to be weighing in. So what I want to know is who you'd pick between the two based on in-ring promo or in-ring ability, promo ability, and their overall gimmick / character.
Oh, we lost Chris.
Oh,
well, that's a pretty good loss.
I'm curious.
I hit the M button. Am I? Hello? There we go. See?
Yeah, you're good. You're live.
I hit the M button and it muted me and took me off screen. So I don't know why. My bad. I talk a lot. Anyway, weigh in on in-ring ability, promo ability, overall gimmick before you make your decision. And feel free to run it down for a minute or so. Talk about that superstar or both superstars as you see fit. But are you guys ready? I don't know if we're going to need a tiebreaker. I think we're just going to go 2-1 or 3-0 at this point, and we'll just see who comes out on top. Are you guys ready?
Yep.
let's do it.
Yeah? All right. So our first matchup here, I'm going to take 2 women who I feel are phenomenal talents in the ring but haven't gotten a fair shot in WWE yet. I'm going to take the woman known as Mia Yim, a.k.a. Mi Chin, versus the pint-sized pixie, Candice LeRae. Kelvin, I'm going to start with you, sir. Mi Chin versus Candice LeRae.
Oh, man, that's a tough one. That's actually a tough one. In-ring ability, I'm gonna shoot off the hip with this one. In-ring ability, I'm gonna go with Candice LeRae. Candice LeRae is very, very underrated. There's a match she had with Nia, and she took the pin. I can't remember that match, but I know she took the pin in it, and she kind of carried that match low key. Told the story, got the story told, did the job, and carried that match. Promo wise, I haven't heard enough from her, so I'm gonna have to give that one to Mia. Overall, I gotta go. I'm gonna go Candice LeRae on this one.
All right, so you're taking Candice LeRae over Michin. CJ, I'm going to come over to you now. Same question. We got to have a unanimous before we move on to the next one. Candice LeRae versus Michin.
So I don't really have a lot of strong opinions on either one of their promo skills. I think they're both pretty middle of the road. As for in-ring capability, I'm going to give a small edge to Candice LeRae right now. I think Michin has more upside currently. But I think Candice LeRae, I'm going to go with Kelvin, and I'll go ahead and lock that one in.
So we got Candice LeRae. She's obviously going to move on. But, Jesse, I'll let you weigh in as well. Candice LeRae versus Michin.
So I'm going to go Candice LeRae, not to take anything away from Michin. Michin is got a lot of positive upside. I don't think either one of them are really exceptional on the mic in any certain way. I think maybe the Poison Pixie may have a slight advantage on the mic just because, of all the stuff with the way and being with Johnny Gargano, and you do learn a thing or two from Mr. Wrestling. Let's just call it what it is. But as far as overall gimmick, I feel like the Poison Pixie has a little bit of a better gimmick too. So I'm gonna lock in Candice LeRae.
All right, so we're going 3-0. Candice LeRae gets the win over Michin. Her next opponent, Candice LeRae versus the United States Women's Champion, Chelsea Green. Jesse, I'm going to start with you this time. Chelsea Green versus Candice LeRae.
Man, so this is another tough one. If we're looking at strictly in-ring ability, I got to give a little bit of an edge to Candice LeRae. But when it comes to that mic work and that gimmick, Chelsea Green is far beyond anything that the Poison Pixie could ever hope to be at this point. So, 2 out of 3, I got to go with Chelsea Green.
All right, so we got 1 for Chelsea Green. Kelvin, Chelsea Green versus Candice LeRae.
I'm gonna lock this one in and say Chelsea. I think promo wise, she kills it. Charisma kills it. In-ring ability, she's just enough to carry on the other 2 factors, right? So Chelsea.
Yeah, and then CJ, again, we got a clear winner, 2-0 right now, but Chelsea Green versus Candice LeRae, how do you see it?
I can't really say much more than these other 2 gentlemen already have. I was kind of where I was going. Her promo skills are pretty good amongst the mid-carders, and she does just fine in the ring. So I think Chelsea Green would be my pick.
All right. Chelsea Green upsets the first rounder, moves on. Our next matchup, guys, this one's really going to set it off here, but Chelsea Green versus Dakota Kai. CJ, I'm going to start with you this time. Chelsea Green versus Dakota Kai of Damage Control.
I mean, as much as I love New Zealand's own Dakota Kai, I'm still going to stick with Chelsea Green for the reasons I mentioned before. I think she's actually better in ring and better on the mic. So to me, I don't have to go in the weeds or really pull deep from this one. I think Chelsea Green is clearly better than Dakota Kai.
All right. Jesse, Chelsea Green versus Dakota Kai.
I got to stick with Chelsea Green, man. Dakota Kai is injury prone. I think that plays a big part in her in-ring ability. She's not that good on the mic. The gimmick's not there either. So I got to stick with Chelsea Green on that one.
All right. So Chelsea Green moving on, 2 wins in a row. But Kelvin, I'm going to let you weigh in here. Do you see anything different between Dakota Kai versus Chelsea Green?
No, I'm gonna stick with it. Chelsea Green, and for the reasons the other 2 gentlemen said.
All right. So now moving on, let's put champion versus champion here. Chelsea Green versus Lyra Valkyria, the Women's Intercontinental Champion. I'm going to start with you, Kelvin.
I'm going to start here. I don't get the appeal in Lyra Valkyria on the main roster. NXT, I got it. Totally get it. Main roster, it's not resonating with me. I don't know what it is about her, but if you would have asked me, I would have said let Dakota Kai take the championship, because I don't get what Lyra's about. She hasn't given me enough to be like, all right, I'm behind you, right? So on that front, if I wanted Dakota Kai to beat her, obviously I'm sticking with Chelsea Green. Chelsea Green is level.
Okay,
There's
CJ had the U.S. champion versus the Intercontinental champion, Chelsea versus Lyra. How do you see it?
Man, I think we're making this a little too easy on you, Chris, because I'm also going with Chelsea Green. I agree. If this was Lyra Valkyria from NXT, we might be having a different conversation, but she has been pretty flat. She has better hair.
She has better hair. Jesse, weigh in for me.
Okay, when you take the entrances of the two, Chelsea has the better entrance with the Secret Service now with Alba Fire and Piper Niven. Lyra just kind of woos her way to the ring and kind of flaps like a fucking bird. The in-ring work of the two, I think Lyra might have a step up on the in-ring work portion of it, but Chelsea still got her on the mic work, the charisma, the gimmick, everywhere else. So I got to lock in with Chelsea on this one.
All right. Chelsea seems to be running away, and I'm like, I kind of feel this, man. She's really growing on me, but let's see how she does against her next competitor, Chelsea Green versus Roxanne Perez. Jesse, I'm going to start with you. The two-time NXT Women's Champion Roxanne Perez versus Chelsea Green. Weigh in for me.
So I haven't seen enough of Roxanne on the main roster yet. If we're talking NXT Roxanne Perez, whole different ballgame. I'd have to go with Roxanne. I haven't seen enough of Roxanne on the main roster to say she's doing better than Chelsea, though. Not to say that Roxanne's in-ring work is not better, because we all know it is. But
we're not necessarily main roster here. We're just talking two superstars going one-on-one. So
it's a toss-up, because Roxanne doesn't really have the mic skill. She doesn't really have the character. She doesn't have the gimmick. I got to go with Chelsea still.
All right, so that's one for Chelsea. Kelvin, how do you see it?
All right, now this is a tough one. Because Roxanne is still early enough in her main roster run that I could judge her based off her NXT experience.
Yeah,
and she's up there for me. I think potentially she's going to be one of the bigger stars, but time has to tell that story. For now, top 2 in the Royal Rumble, in there with Charlotte Flair, that means a lot. And told the story on the way. I actually thought that there was a chance she could actually win that Royal Rumble. So that's a big point for me. I'm gonna go with Roxanne on this one, just based off her NXT work and what I know she's capable of. We haven't quite seen it yet because she's still fresh in our main roster run. But I'm gonna give her NXT run some cred here. Great champion, told great stories. In-ring work is great. Mic work, like Chelsea Green, her mic work is enough to get her forward. So I'm gonna give it to Roxanne on this one.
Well, we have our first tie so far. CJ, you are going to be the tiebreaker here. Chelsea Green versus Roxanne Perez. Who are you giving it to?
As CJ the Booker, I'm never going to put a Canadian over a Texan. Roxanne Perez for the win.
Yes! Yes!
That's simple.
I love it. And that's what I've been looking for on this. I love it. He went straight personal there. Canadians do not beat Texans. But guys, we can't argue. Like you said, Kelvin, Roxanne Perez is up and coming. She's going to be a phenomenal star. We all know how Booker T feels about her. So
Roxanne Perez for the win.
Roxanne moving on to her first competitor. I'm going to put her up against the woman that she beat in the Intercontinental Tournament, Roxanne Perez versus Raquel Rodriguez of the Judgment Day. CJ, I'm going to start with you. It's a Texan versus a Mexican. Let's go. What do you see?
Man, that's a pretty tough one. But I hate to tell you this. You found my kryptonite because she's actually from Lafayette, Texas. Both of them are. while the other one is from Laredo. So, with that said,
two Texans, a Texan
yeah,
versus a Texan.
Not my kryptonite on this one. I really like where we're going with Raquel Rodriguez lately, and for all the same reasons that I said Roxanne was a little green, I think I'm gonna go with Raquel Rodriguez.
All right, so Raquel gets the jump there. Kelvin, you're a Texan as well right now. So how do you see this playing out? And remember, it's not just about the size; it's about the overall here. Roxanne versus Raquel. How do you see it?
If you'd asked me this a couple months ago, I'd have stuck with Roxanne. But I like what they're doing with Raquel. I do like what they're doing with her. She is the Kevin Nash in this situation, and really holding her own right now. She really changed my mind on her. So I'm gonna go with Raquel on this one too.
Jesse, this is one. We've got a clear-cut winner, Raquel moving on, knocking out Roxanne Perez. But tell me how you feel about Roxanne versus one half of the women's tag team champions.
So I'm gonna go with Raquel to round this out. Raquel's got the size, she's got the Judgment Day. She doesn't necessarily have to have the mic work because Liv can cut the promos for her, but the in-ring work is much better. That Chigona bomb is a beast of a fucking move.
Yeah. All right, so we're moving on with Raquel Rodriguez. We're going to go from one strong one to another. Raquel Rodriguez versus American Maid's Ivy Nile. Jesse, I'm going to start with you here. We know Ivy's green, but she's really showing out lately. Raquel versus Ivy Nile. How do you see it?
I still got to stick with Raquel for the same reasons I just mentioned a while ago. I don't think Ivy's really showed us enough on the main roster yet. She didn't really show us anything in NXT either. She is still a little green, but, for that fact, I got to go with Raquel Gonzalez or Rodriguez, whatever you're going to call her.
Awesome. CJ, how do you see this one? Ivy Nile versus Raquel Rodriguez.
I'm going to go with Raquel Rodriguez. I think Ivy Nile is... while she has good ring gear, I'm not a big fan of her right now.
Okay. Calvin, you want to weigh in on this matchup?
I'm going to stick Raquel, but there's something to Ivy that I like. I think she needs more opportunities. If we get more opportunities out of her, she's going to be something. She just needs to get more opportunities. I like what I've seen out of her. I need to see more of what I'm seeing.
Yeah, that Pitbull persona that they've adopted for her is it's going to really take off more if they start doing more with her. So, all right, guys, we're down to the last two competitors, and I think this is really going to start to get interesting here. I'm going to give you guys the first one. I'm saving the last one for last because of who she is. Raquel Rodriguez versus Wyatt Six member Nikki Cross. Kelvin, I want you to take into consideration Nikki's entire career, not just part of the Wyatt Six. Raquel Rodriguez versus Nikki Cross. How do you see it?
Oh, man. Nikki Cross. She's somebody that I've had a real attention for because of what she's able to do in the ring. She got over this dumbass superhero gimmick, and that's hard to do, bro. That gimmick was made for her to fail, and she got it over anyway. Dang. But Raquel, I like what they're doing with her. I'm gonna stick with Raquel on this one.
Ooh,
I am.
Okay.
I am.
I like that. Jesse, I'm going to move on to you here. Nikki ASH, Sanity member Nikki Cross.
I still got to stick with Raquel for the same reasons we've already mentioned before. Raquel's got the size, everything they're doing with her with Judgment Day. She doesn't need a mouthpiece. Don't get me wrong, I like Nikki Cross, especially in the Wyatt Six. But if you get putting the two against each other, they're going to put Raquel over every day.
All right, CJ, you want to weigh in here? Nikki Cross and Raquel Rodriguez.
No one from the Wyatt Six wrestles anymore. Next.
Wow. Wow. All right, guys. So our main event matchup in this Queen of the Mountain tournament, our first of its kind, Raquel Rodriguez versus the final competitor, DJ, I'm starting with you, versus Miss Twisted Bliss, Alexa Bliss.
Well, since she hasn't debuted for the Wyatt Six yet, I'm going to go ahead and go with Alexa Bliss, just because she is champion caliber, even in canon. She's won the title before. She held the title for a while. Though she may have some ring rust, I think she would find a way to win.
Gotcha, Kelvin. Raquel versus Alexa, and Alexa's just coming back off of that pregnancy. But how do you see it?
I'm gonna go Sister Abigail on this one, man. She has an incredible repertoire to her for being so small, to be able to make it look credible in the ring. What she does to appear like a threat. The promos are great. What she did with Bray, rest in peace to Bray. What she did with him, I liked it. I didn't like how they ended that, but I liked her overall, Sister Abigail, and I hope she gets back to that, because that was money. It really was money. So I'm gonna go with Alexa on this one.
Jesse, is this clear cut 3-0? Alexa Bliss taking the victory over Raquel?
Clear cut all day, every day. Little Miss Bliss takes the win. There's Alexa has the character, the mic work, the in-ring ability, the entrance, all of the above.
Yeah. Now, Kelvin, I have to give you a shout out real quick, because you're the first person that I have heard mention Alexa Bliss as to the gimmick she needs to be, and not saying that Nikki Cross's Wyatt Six member is actually Sister Abigail. She's Abby the Witch. Abby the Witch and Sister Abigail are two different characters, and I've been arguing with people about that for a long time. So, guys, that is the end of our Queen of the Mountain tournament. Alexa Bliss coming in strong to win it at the end. I got to ask, though, and I'm going to start with you, Jesse, because you were the last. Do you think Alexa could have ran the table if I started with her?
I think there's a high probability that Alexa runs the table.
Yeah, CJ, is there anybody on my list of top 10 that could have unseated Alexa Bliss, or was it clear cut?
She's a main eventer. The rest of them aren't.
You agree, Kelvin?
I agree with that.
I only chose her because of the return, her absence for so long. I just felt like it was one of those things where, could we really think about everything she's done in the past? And you guys answered the question. Yes, we can. Alexa Bliss is going to slowly but surely climb her way back up into that main event picture. Guys, this has been a phenomenal episode. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. Kelvin, we so greatly appreciate you joining us. I'm going to open that invite anytime you want. You are more than welcome back on with us. Shout out your podcast for us one more time.
Oh, man. First of all, thank you guys for having me on. This is an absolute blast, but I expected to, because me and Jesse had a blast when he was on No Gimmicks. So thank you guys for having me on. You can follow us. We have our own YouTube channel. Search the No Gimmicks Podcast or at No Gimmicks DFPN on YouTube. You can find us there. The No Gimmicks Podcast Facebook page. You can have us there. Again, on all streaming platforms. You can find us on DFPN.com. Shout out to all the podcasts that we have on there. We have so many podcasts on the network that do phenomenal things in their own right. Shout out to Nightmares and Nerdscapes, who was in here providing comments. That's one of the podcasts on the network. So thank you for coming through and leaving some comments there, CJ. I appreciate that. But yeah, man, you can find us. DDFPN.com is our main source. So phenomenal run of podcasts that we have on the network. Thank you guys so much again for having me on. This was absolute blast. And if I got the time and you guys will have me, I'll be more than happy to come back.
Absolutely. As we wrap up, guys, CJ, any last thoughts before we head off for the day?
No, not from me, Kelvin. Thanks for jumping in. I really enjoyed your thoughts on things. I think me and you are pretty similar in the way we see the wrestling business.
Absolutely.
Jesse, what about you, my man?
Man, I've had an incredible blast today talking wrestling with Kelvin and you guys, and I can't wait to do it again. You know, maybe one day all 4 of us can get on No Gimmicks and we can talk some more on Kelvin's podcast. It'd be a
Doors
good.
open, man. Doors always open. So.
That'd be awesome. I'd love to meet your buddy D and hear. I would just love to see him and CJ have a conversation for about 5-10 minutes. I think that would end up being a 2-hour long episode.
Yes.
Just hearing them talk the history of the business. Well, guys, we have hit the end of our show. We have almost hit the 2-hour mark. We're cutting a little early today because we have hit the end of our run sheet. We are just a couple weeks away from WrestleMania. The European tour is still going on. We have another episode of Monday Night Raw overseas, and I think one more episode of SmackDown as well before the WWE heads back to the States getting ready for WrestleMania. We will be back next week. You can catch us on all of our platforms, Facebook. Something happened with TikTok. You can go yourself, TikTok. We'll get back on there eventually. YouTube, Amazon, Apple, and Spotify. In the meantime, we are the Rejects. We'll be back next week. Jesse, hit them with it.
We are the Rejects.